Sunday, Coastside Church. Welcome back to another episode of Church Online. I hope you've had an incredible weekend. For those who find yourself watching this video, my name is Kirsty. My husband and I are the youth pastors of Coastside Church, and we have an incredible little 2-year-old named Dallas, and we are currently in our 30th week of our second child. So we're coming to the pointy end of, of growing this little human, and I wanted to invite you into our nursery here today because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that, what that journey has looked like for myself, growing this human in COVID and the difference between, having Dallas, not in a pandemic, and having this baby in a pandemic. And, because we are at this, the pointy end of this pregnancy, a lot of questions has come up and a lot of doubt and a little bit of anxiety has creeped in, and that's not like me, and I know that that's not God's plan for my life. And I wanted to share with you today a little bit about what God has been speaking to me about and what I've been talking to God about, because, when I birthed Dallas, I had an incredible birth team. Now, I had my husband, I had my mum, and I had my mother-in-law with me, and that made a huge difference. But coming into this second pregnancy, because of COVID, it is a one-person birth team. And so that means if I want my mum there, Samuel has to leave the room. And if I want my mother-in-law there, that means that my mum has to leave the room. And for me, that is just not an option. And it's quite scary, do you know what I mean? Because birth is such a vulnerable and a sacred place for a woman and her husband. It can come quite overwhelming when that doesn't look like the way that you had thought or planned. And I was looking through my Bible, and because I was coming quite anxious, I identified it, because I know that the enemy, especially in this last couple of weeks, wants me to defer from what God has planned for my life and planned for this pregnancy and this birth. And you know what? I just thought, I'm not having it. And I know that for you, your circumstances don't look like mine. Do you know what I mean? I'm in a season of pregnancy and children, and for you, the enemy could be ripping you off in other ways. And I found this incredible Bible verse that I would love to share with you guys, and you can find it in 2 Peter 3, and it's a Message version. It's the 8-9 scripture, and it says, "Don't overlook the obvious here, friends." Straight away, I love that. Straight away, Peter's like, don't overlook the obvious. Let's not overlook what God has always planned for our lives. We've never thought that, a pandemic would come and our world would look like the way that it has, and COVID's coming and going, and it's rising and it's falling, and there's all this unknown. But I love that straight off the bat it says, don't overlook the obvious. Don't overlook what God has always planned for your life. Keep your eyes literally so focused on the one that matters. It says, with God, one day is as good as 1,000 years. 1,000 years as a day. And you know what? That really just that just got me, especially the obvious bits. Cursed. Don't overlook the obvious. Co-side. Don't overlook the obvious. One day with God is as good as 1,000 years. Just one day. And I have this beautiful relationship with God, and I'm walking with God every day. And one day is as good as 1,000 years. Let's just remind ourselves of that yes, that day might not have looked as the way that we had hoped or planned, or that day that we felt anxious, or that day that we felt overwhelmed. That day was still better than 1,000 years without God. This is the bit that really, I suppose, spoke to me and really healed that anxiousness that I was feeling. And it says, God isn't late with his promises, as some measure lateness. God isn't late with his promises. My circumstances that, my promises is growing within me. I got to continue to always remind myself that all of that makes up for the big picture, but the promise is within me. We have been blessed to be able to have another child and to, grow him up in the kingdom and grow him around Coastside Church and the family members that make up Coastside. And that's the promise. That's the promise. What's your promise, Coastside? What is in your heart right now? Is it that home loan that keeps getting deferred because COVID? Is it that car loan that you just it's so close? Is it, I don't know what your promise looks like, because all of our promises are so different. But just know that God isn't late. It says it right here. God isn't late with his promises, but as some measure lateness. I love that, as humans and in our flesh, we're always on the clock. We're always on the clock and we go, okay, why hasn't it happened yet? Why hasn't it been approved yet? Why hasn't this restriction been lifted yet? These are all questions and cry outs that we're coming to God with. I know that I've had many conversations with God going, what the heck? Why? Like, you have the power of life and death. You have this ability to go lift, but I can't measure that. That's not in, I don't have that power. But what I do have is that I just need to trust my God that he is never late with his promises. Because at the end of the day, we get this incredible new baby boy that is going to blow our expectations, and none of it's going to matter at the end of the day. But just know that God is never late with his promises. And we as his, as people who follow him and love him and adore him, we need to make sure that, we're not always measuring, we're not always measuring with time, because God doesn't work on time. He doesn't care about time. He just works everything out in a way that we will never comprehend. And I love that about God. I think it's the most frustrating thing about God. It's the best thing about God is that, we never know when it's going to happen, so let's not try and measure, his promises with time. It then says, he is restraining himself on account of you, holding back the end because he doesn't want anybody lost. He's given everybody space and time to change. So this whole Bible verse, don't overlook the obvious here, friends. With God, one day is as good as 1,000 years, 1,000 years as a day. God isn't late with his promises, as some measure lateness. He is restraining himself on account of you, holding back the end because he doesn't want anybody lost. He's given everybody space and time to change. So he's given me space and time to change the way that I'm seeing this scenario. God's saying to me, Kirsty, what do you need to change in your heart to see this differently? What can I make clearer for you, co-side? Or what can I make clearer for you today to change the way that you're seeing this? Don't measure my promises with your time. He has got this. Don't overlook the obvious. What's the obvious? What is the obvious for you today? We need to always remind ourselves that God's plan and purpose for our lives will never change. Regardless of COVID, regardless of circumstances, regardless of situations we put ourselves in, God's plan for our lives will always prevail, and his love for you especially is overwhelming and incredible. For those, if you find yourself watching this video today and you're like, I don't do God, I don't get it. Trust me, I was there once too, a good 8 years ago, I was in a situation where I didn't know God, and it took me some time to find out who he is. And I want to give you the opportunity that if you're finding yourself in this epidemic and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed and you're feeling a little bit anxious because things, that you have in your time aren't going to plan, I'd love for you to contact Coastside Church, and we'd love to talk to you and to love you through that, because, I'm feeling that exact way too. But the best thing is that I have this incredible God whose word tells me, don't overlook the obvious, Kirsty. Stop measuring my promises on your watch, and just know that in all of this, there's time for you to heal and to change what you're feeling and what you're thinking. So today I want to encourage you, Coastside Church, do the same. Do the exact same. Don't measure his promises on your time. Our promises look completely different, and I totally get that. But only you know what's inside you and what your heart is needing right now. And if you are somebody who knows God, I encourage you, take the time this week just to sit and go, okay, God, I'm feeling a little bit mad. I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. What can you teach me? What can you let me know right now so I can get on with what you've called me to do? I don't want to be stuck at this roundabout of doubt and anxiousness and stuck on my time and not yours. Let that be, your little homework for the week. Oh, who does homework? No, we don't even want homework, but let it be your homework for the week. Just to be able to sit in his presence and to talk to him about what is going on in your heart. And again, if you're somebody who doesn't know God, please come be a part of our family. You are more than welcome. That's what we're here for. God loves you very much. And, Mark and Shree, our lead pastors, are so excited to get back into church and see you all. So just keep connected with what we're doing here. And we're so excited to see you again. But we just love that we have this platform to see you guys. So have an incredible week. Remember, don't measure his promises with our time. And what can you learn and change in the season of what you're feeling right now? It was lovely to see you all. I can't wait for you guys to meet our baby when he comes, and have a great week. And it was lovely to see you. Bye, guys.